Welcome to the Moton Museum. I'm Leah Brown. I'm the Assistant Director for Education at Moton. We are a civil rights museum in Farmville, Virginia. Part of our mission is to focus on civil rights in education. And today we have with us Ms. Sylvia Hathaway. Ms. Hathaway was part of the Green v. County School Board of New Kent County case. And how that case worked was in 1965, schools implemented a plan called Freedom of Choice. The Freedom of Choice plan meant that parents and students would be actively integrating school systems, taking away the responsibility for the school boards to do that, and all the pressure and expectation was put upon the students and their families. So thank you for spending your time with us today. We really appreciate it. So the first question, if you don't mind stating your name, where you're from, and just a little bit about yourself.
Yes, my name is Sylvia Lewis Hathaway, and I am a native of New Kent County, Virginia. Of course, like everybody else, we all go away for a while, but we come back. I came back to New Kent and I got a job teaching at New Kent High School. And once I did that, for 7, 8 years, I guess, I left teaching and I went to work for Virginia Cooperative Extension as an extension agent. Job 2, which I thoroughly enjoyed. And I was baptized in a church in New Kent, which happened to be Second Liberty Baptist. I'm the Dr. Watkins, G.W. Watkins. And so I have strong roots and ties here in the county. And I've been living here now for over 30 years with my family here in the county and everything else. So I guess you can truly say I love it.
Well, wonderful. Okay, so being from New Kent, having your childhood there, can you just tell us what your childhood was like?
Oh, I believe I had a wonderful childhood. Back in the day, as they say, we lived on a dirt road. We lived less than a mile from the colored school, as they called it back then. They didn't have many buses, so any kids that lived less than a mile had to walk to school. So for the first, I guess, 7 years of my education, I walked to school with my friends and family that lived on the same road that I did. We made shortcuts through the woods, and we just had a good time growing up and playing and running through the fields and whatever else. So my childhood, I think, was, I have very fond memories of it.
Okay. What's your first memory of school? I'm assuming at Watkins. Is that where you started?
Right, right. My first memories of school was going to G.W. Watkins High School. I'm sorry, it was just G.W. Watkins School then, and it housed grades 1 through 12. Back in the day, there was no kindergarten. There was 1 through 12. I was a little disappointed when I first started school because I thought I was going to start in the second grade, because back then, if you went to school and you could read, you were considered advanced. So they skipped a grade. Instead of starting in the first grade, you start in the second grade. Now, of course, with my luck, they cut that out the year I started school. But it still kind of worked out, because a lot of, well, not a lot, but some of the teachers taught 2 grades. So I had a teacher who was teaching the first and second grade. And she gave me both. and mostly second grade work because my mother did teach me how to read before I went to school. But I enjoyed it. My cousins, my friends, and we just had a good time. We had nothing. We had to make up our own games.
Mhm.
We didn't have a playground, a swing, or nothing unless we put a rope around the tree and swing on that. But we had a good time.
Good. um, okay, so with the freedom of choice plan, you transitioned from Watkins to New Kent High School. How was that?
Well, we were being prepared because if you knew Dr. Green did not believe in failure. So he went into the case knowing in his heart that he was a brilliant man and he knew he was going to win. And he didn't go into it until he knew he was going to win. So the freedom of choice really helped him because there he had a model that was not working, and he could prove it to the United States of America that freedom of choice does not work. So, as I said, we were being prepared, and one day I was sitting at the colored school doing my work, and someone knocked on the door and called for, well, I guess it was 2 or 3 students out of my room to come out in the hall. And they talked to us and said, you all are going to the white school today. And all of us were shocked. They said, go back, get your things. We're going to take you down there. So we did. They told us that our parents had been notified and that it was okay. So we got on the bus. They took us, wasn't many of us. They only took the high school, or back then high school was 8 through 12. So I was in the 9th grade, I believe, and they took us to the school. Of course, my mom and dad was there when we got there, and other parents too of children because they were already notified. They had to get their permission. So we went there, shocked and not knowing what we were going to expect. And of course, when we walked into school, they looked at us like we were creatures from Mars or somewhere. And I had to keep telling myself, okay, I've got this. Okay. So that's the memory that I have. I think if if they had come in and said, tomorrow you all are going to the other school, we had all night long to prepare and to know how to act and what to do and all that stuff. But by coming in and taking us and carrying us and throwing us into that zoo, we were a little more nervous and upset than we would have been, even though we knew it was going to happen. So that's the experience that I remember anyway. Mind you, that's been over 50 years ago.
Why did your parents choose that? Why did your parents want to have you guys in part of the freedom of choice plan?
Because my dad and other community leaders believed in the best for us.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew that going to the colored school where we got hand down books from the other school, we did not have equipment in the labs. We just did not have anything. No gym, no sports. The only sports that was up there, and that took a long time to do, was baseball. That was it. And so these men, Dr. Green and the men of the Civic League, which belonged to both, by the way, the Civic League and the NAACP, but they were acting for the Civic League, knew that that was not the best. So they kind of prepared us by telling us stories and all through our childhood about what was going on. things that they would probably say to you, et cetera, which we didn't know because we had never experienced any of this. So at that, on top of the fact that I come from a family of educators, and so they have always said, you know, education, get the best education you can. The only thing that I knew from a child growing up uh, about school basically was I had to get good grades, finish school, and go to college. To me, there was no other choice. Finish school, or no, get good grades in school, finish school, and go to college. And my cousins, my aunts, uncles, they would tell us the same thing. You have to go to college. You have to do the best you can do in school so you can get in college. And some of them had just blown my mind back in the day at the things that they were doing, and they finished college. So I said, okay, might not be too bad after all.
Right.
And that's what I strive for. Yeah.
Definitely makes a difference when this is like, that's the expectation. Like, of course you're going to school. What school are you going to, kind of thing.
Yes.
Versus, I'm like, you know, and like, no, this is the path you're on. Okay.
And then when I was growing up, you know, all these people out here trying to tell you how to raise your children, you have to give the children choices, but make them choices that you agree to or like. So my children always knew they were going to school, they were going to get good grades, and when they finished school, as far as my son was concerned, his two choices were he was going in the military or he was going to college. Now he had a choice, and I could live with either one of them if he went in the military or if he went to college. But of course he went to college. My daughter said I did the same way. She said, a woman in the military? I said, yeah, there are plenty of women in the military. The thing about it is y'all are not going to graduate and stay here at home with me, and I still have to pay everything. You know, you can't make it off of McDonald's back there then, probably $4 or $5 an hour. No way.
Yeah.
So they had choices too, but I didn't have a choice. I was going to school, get good grades, and going to college.
There you go.
And my friends, all of us were competing together to become valedictorian and salutatorian, and we always kept up with our grades. We knew who had what, and it was like a competition, but not it was a friendly competition, not anything that, you know. But the moment that I left the school, and none of my immediate friends went with me. So when I got there, I had to really, really dig to maintain passing grades, because the teachers told us that they were going to fail us and they didn't care whether we learned or not. So if you give them back what they gave you, then it was hard for them to dispute that. However, they always found ways, like you forgot to cross your T, or you didn't dot your I. I mean, little petty things, so that we would not succeed. The first year that I was there, I really, really struggled, because they said, you know, we don't know why you're here. You're not going to pass anyway. But when my dad found out what was going on, he went to the school, and he didn't tell me exactly what he said, but I guess some of it wasn't so nice, because they didn't do that little stupid stuff anymore, like you didn't cross the T, or you didn't dot the I, or this word is out of place, or whatever they could come up with. They stopped doing that immediately. And once they stopped doing that, they still found ways to make sure that we didn't get A's and B's, and ways to legitimately give F's to those students who uh, well, most people call average students. The average students didn't stand a chance. So what some of them did was the next year, they went back to the colored school because they could not stand the pressure. Um, my parents always taught me that whatever you learn, nobody can take it away from you. So I kind of hung in there, and I've always been a fighter anyway. So I wasn't going to let them defeat me. And if I thought they marked something incorrectly, I would go to them. Some of the students were afraid to go to them, afraid of how they were going to react. But I demanded that they explain to me, if I showed them the answer in the book and I wrote very similar to what they said, which meant the same thing,
Mhm.
why is this wrong? And I guess they got tired of dealing with me. So by the time I got to my junior year, my grades improved a lot. And I don't think any of them ever had nerve enough to give me an F because they knew my dad. And senior year, I was doing okay. In my book, I was always passing, but I wanted the higher grades like I initially had.
Absolutely.
So it was a difference. Yeah, it was a difference in as night and day in how we were treated there and how our grades were handled.
Mhm. I mean, especially with the
Plus,
aspect.
the black school made you feel like a family, and I was used to that. To go down there and everybody's turning their back on you and telling you, I mean, they were blatant. I don't want to teach you anyway.
Mm. I mean, thinking about how that would impact a student, it's hard enough to learn content and then having to navigate those waters where you know you're not welcome. So having, I guess, having the gumption, the spirit to be like, no, we're gonna discuss this, definitely made a difference when it came to just grades. Um, it just huge impact in your education and how it made it so much harder to just learn. Okay, so I read that you were the first African American on the softball team in New Kent. How did that go?
Oh, yes.
Whoop. Okay.
That was an experience. You go to the away games, nobody wanted to sit beside you on the bus.
Mhm.
I don't care how crowded the bus was. If they had to sit four on the seat, they were going to do that versus sit beside me. But see, that really didn't bother me because I had more space and I could kind of stretch out. But yeah, it was, and I tell the story as an adult now. I feel bad, but I was being used at the time.
Hmm.
So I can't feel but so bad. What happened was we were at the playoffs in West Point. We were playing West Point. The coach knew that I was one of the better players on the team, that I was going to hit the ball somewhere and that I was not going to strike out, but yet she never started me. So, when we went to the playoffs in West Point, the bases were loaded and there were two people out. And what would she do? She turned around and looked at me and said, "Go in." And I said to myself, "Go in." Okay. So I went in when the inning changed and it was my time to bat. I swung at the first one, asked myself what was I really going to do. But to make a long story short, I struck out. And I did it on purpose.
Mm.
And that I know that's wrong, but that's the way I felt at the time. She turned blue, purple, green, and any other color she could turn because I did that. But I think she got the point because the next year she left and went to teach at a private school.
Mm, mm. I mean, that story does a lot because you've been how you were treated the whole year, but then when it's crunch time, it's like, oh, we need you now versus
Yes,
you and your skill this entire time. Okay, makes sense.
yes.
Yeah. Ooh. Ooh. Okay. So, what was it like when the court case got started? Like, I guess, what do you remember about the process of being involved with the court case? Because I know your dad was with the Civic League, so he already knew what was going on, but how did that impact you? Like, you as a student, your family, the community? So that was a lot of questions.
Well, uh, my dad always talked or taught us that our minds were just as good as everybody else's. We were just as good as everybody else. And he talked about civic duties and things that needed to be done. So when he got involved with the case, he didn't keep it from us. He told us what was going on. And so we, at the time, we were aware of, what was going on in the court case and all of that. My father and the others who um, filed the suit along with Dr. Green, who was the number one person, uh, he went to the Supreme Court that day. All of them went up there to see how they were going to rule. And it just so happens that they ruled in our favor. But that was in 1968. I had been at the white school since 1965, I believe, when they started the freedom of choice. Now that was the shocker to me, because we were all my parents talked to us and told us that they were entering that suit on our behalf, and we might have to go down there. But as a child, I'm thinking, okay, when they integrate the schools, we'll all go down. But I was sitting in class one day in 1965, and they came through the school and said, you're going to the white school. That was under the freedom of choice plan, which I knew, he had kind of signed us up to participate. Okay. But I guess I wasn't ready, particularly in the middle of, because they dragged their feet so long and didn't do it until the very last minute. So they had contacted the parents. He knew, because he met us there when they came and took us down to the school. But, we were shocked, but we were prepared. They actually prepared us. In the meetings, they told us, listen, eventually you're going to have to go. We're going to test this thing. We're going to do the freedom of choice. You all will be the ones that was and they picked high school students because they thought that or back then the high school was like 8 to 12th mm-hmm. grade. So, but they thought that we would be able to survive better than the younger children initially. So the first ones that went were the high school students. And we were just thrown into the wolves den, I guess you say, all of a sudden, because they had to do it. And but like I said, they were preparing us. They told us always travel in twos. Don't go anywhere by yourself because you need to have a witness at all times. So we were being prepared when we went there, and we did, follow what we were taught.
Okay, good. Yeah. In doing research about other school integration, program's not the right word, but just protocols definitely go in groups for safety. And it's wild in 2020 to think about the different aspects of survival skills taught to students who just want an education.
That's correct.
All right. So in the article I read, it talked about your faith and how that impacted your experience. Can you share a little bit about that?
Uh, yes, if I wasn't taught how to be a Christian,
Mm.
I may not have survived because some of the harassment, um, some of the cruel tricks that they pulled on us, um, those types of things would drive anybody up a wall. But like I said, they told us to be calm and report everything. Well, I don't think I was as calm as they wanted me to be because I always spoke my piece.
Mhm.
And my sister and I were there together. We were two grades apart. But she one day picked up a board on the sidewalk and was going to hit a student. And she probably should have, but we stopped her. You know, we caught her hand before she actually hit him, because you know we had guys there. We were on the way to lunch, and we had guys around us too. And I knew that would have been an all-out, or they
Yeah.
knew too, that would have been an all-out war if she had hit that boy who was one of the prominent young men in the community's son, even though he wasn't the best of persons
Mm.
in the world. But, you know, things like that, we were sort of prepped and prepared, but it wasn't easy. And the only person that we had to lean on was the man above,
Mhm.
because they could cause you, and oftentimes tried to cause you, to really start something. You know, then they would charge us with assault and, you know,
Right.
all kinds of things. Arrested. No, we didn't want that.
Okay. Yeah.
So I had to have some kind of rock to lean and depend on.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Oof. Ooh. And then like in that one scene, if with everybody that was there, that would have been mass chaos, and every excuse needed to kind of end the freedom of choice
Yes.
plan altogether. So you know,
Mm-hmm.
there's
Mm-hmm.
so many layers to having to the process of integration of schools. So
Right.
it's just so much to learn. Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
What would you want students today to take away from your experience? What advice or guidance would you give them?
Give the students, or give
Yeah,
who?
of today. Yeah.
Today?
Mm-hmm.
Well, well, I don't know if unfortunately or fortunately, I still do some subbing in New Kent. And it really bothers me
Hmm.
that the kids know nothing about what we had to go through in order for them to get a brand new high school or brand new middle school or brand new school, period. And for them to act like they act now, it really bothers me. I don't know how much uh, longer I'm going to be doing this, because I do get so frustrated with the children. And sometimes I'll just take them out of the classroom, stand beside the door so I could see the rest of the class, and just talk to them and tell them, you know, just stop. You know, you're here for education. You're not here to play and act silly and all that kind of stuff. That's why I stay in there, to try to reach some of those kids. But most of them, well, none of them hardly knew when we celebrated 50 years. None of them had even heard of Dr. Green or knew anything about how it came about that all of them were in school together. They just don't know. They don't teach it. Now they do in New Kent.
Hmm.
They teach it because there again, people spoke up, forced the issue, had a wonderful superintendent at the time who has left us, but he demanded that the teachers teach Green versus the board of County Board of New Kent School Board. and now they teach it, and now they're learning. Unfortunately, they don't get it until high school, but at least they're getting it.
Okay. Okay. So just trying to expose students to things that happen. 'Cause
Correct.
unless they're taught it, how would they know? Definitely makes a difference.
They
Well,
wouldn't. And today's kids, parents don't even know,
mm,
because the parents all graduated from, integrated school systems. So the parents can't teach them, and they just don't know.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, for sharing this history, which I learned about the court case when I was working in New Kent for a little bit, and just like, oh, what is this? Definitely was a shock to me as well. So I feel like it's really important to explain well, first of all, what the freedom of choice plan was and how families tried to bridge the gap, and then how this court case really got the wheels go rolling on integration and how that changed education altogether within the nation.
Yeah.
Is there anything else
And
you
they knew when they, yeah, they knew when they came up with this freedom of choice thing. The only reason they came up with it was because the state was denying school system funds. So they had to do something in order to get the money to run the school. That's when they came up with freedom of choice. Well, no white child or student was going to choose to go to the black school. It was the black children who was choosing to go to the white schools to prove a point. And it had to be tested like that in order, because remember, I said I went there in 65.
Mhm.
I graduated in 8. The case was handed down then, and it was 2 years later before they totally integrated the school. But now I like the reason they did that, because what they did after the case was handed down and they were told that they had to totally integrate, they took a year to prepare the faculty, the black faculty, because they didn't want to go either, and the white faculty, they didn't want to integrate. So in between, they sent a few test teachers and hired a few at the black school, because none of them that was already in the system was going. But they found young uh, white teachers who didn't mind who they taught. So they went to the black school and taught. So for a year, they were getting used to each other
Mhm.
before they totally integrated in 1970, which was my sister graduated from that first totally integrated class in 1970. But from 68 to 70, things were a mess.
I mean, yeah, just that transition. And I'm glad you brought up that different teachers were brought in and they had to meet each other and learn each other's teaching principles, practices, also the different cultural aspects of it and different school experiences. Definitely a lot to work out before you even get into the classroom to actually teach. Ooh, like it's just so much to unpack, so much to think about. Because
Yes.
I was raised by educators, so knowing how the process is every school year, there's new teachers, you have to learn each other's personalities, how they teaching techniques and styles. Definitely, definitely makes a huge difference when it comes to just starting the school year.
Right.
Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
I can't think of anything right now. I hope I've answered your questions
Yes, ma'am.
to your satisfaction. And I could talk about my experiences and the things that were done to me uh, for years, I guess. But I I think the entire situation made me a better person,
Mm,
having to go through that. And or at least I would like to think that's what happened anyway. Because now some of my best friends are students that I went to school with that would not even speak to me when I was in school, but we get along just fine now.
Yeah, that's quite a difference when it's like we can look back and see how you were treated, that experience, but today the relationships that have formed. Oh, I did have one other
Yeah.
question. So as a teacher, what was it like being in the classroom? Especially thinking
Oh,
of,
when I was teaching,
yes, ma'am.
when I was teaching, I had some good role models
Mhm.
uh, when I was coming up. So I tried to be like most or some of them. I consider myself to be a very strict teacher and letting the kids know that they couldn't get over on me because there's nothing I had not seen before. To the point that when the principal realized that I could control my classes better than some of the other teachers,
Mm.
he made up a class and put 9 boys who had either been arrested,
Mm.
had some type of criminal charges, but the law said they had to go to school. And he was tired of dealing with them, putting them out of school, et cetera, et cetera. So he called me to the office one day and he said, I want you to teach. And he named all the kids. And I said, teach them? What am I going to teach them? Now, granted, I was the home economics teacher at the time. So he said, I really don't care what you do, make up something. And at that point, that let me know you're the principal, you can't handle them, but yet you're giving them to me. So I kind of figured that that was probably about my time to leave teaching.
Mm.
But I took on the challenge and I taught those children. And most of them, I had one boy who grew up in Quentin and did not know how to spell Quentin.
Mm.
It was just that bad because they were poor readers. The parents just let them do whatever. And that's the way it was. So yes, I taught them life skills.
Mm.
And I'm glad I did that, even though I had to make it up, I assessed them where they were and taught them to try to bring it up. But I kept telling myself, this is not my job. I was on the high school level. What have you been doing with them from kindergarten to 9th, 10th, 11th? Because they were in various grades for, for all those grades. And it was an enjoyable class because it was a challenge. I liked that. But I did not like the fact that the administration could not handle the problem. I'm not an administrator. I'm not getting paid not 1 cent more
Mm.
to deal with these children. Uh, excuse me. But I did, and as I try to do most things, I did the best that I could. And I still have some of them now. I don't care where they see me, they will come running to speak to me or give me a hug. And I won't let them talk about other teachers because I say, I don't want to hear that. And, but you were the best. So I feel real good about that. But I just could not, I got another opportunity and I couldn't turn it down. If this is what my career in teaching was going to be like, I'm going to get all the students that nobody else wants. That wasn't what I was there for. I wanted to teach the students that wanted to be there so they could learn. They didn't want to be there, but they were forced to learn by me. And I really enjoyed it in the end. but I didn't like it initially in the beginning.
Yeah, that makes sense. But to see
Mm,
the impact an educator has, that they so come up to you and like find you if you're somewhere in the crowd, to have that
right.
relationship. So it means a lot. Okay. Well, thank you so much for spending your time with us today at the Moat Museum. We're trying to, part of my mission is to both preserve history and interpret civil rights history and education, and definitely the freedom of choice plan, the green case, huge leaps and bounds within education and how slowly just trying to get towards an integrated school system. Okay.
Thank you so much. I've been wondering how you found me, but anyway, uh, I don't mind at all sharing my experiences because, I hope it will help someone else. And not only that, in the school system today, we seem to be going back to some of the old ways, which we're
Mm,
trying to keep from doing and keeping those kids straight and knowing the history that they came from so they can be better people.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Thank you so much. We're gonna get this all tweaked out and fixed, and I will let you know when we have it uploaded on our website. Oh,
Okay.
about the form, you can just send me a picture and over email. We just need to have, or just email like you consent. Either way is fine. Because apparently
Okay.
we don't have a fax machine. Apparently, I don't know what happened to it, but it's gone.
Well, what, there's a fax number on that form.
Yeah, we're working on that.
Hey, it's it's okay. I'll try to scan it and then send it
Okay,
in
ma'am. That would be
that way.
Well, thank you again so much. It's been wonderful spending the morning with you. How's your knee? How's your knee doing?
How's my knee?
Hmm. Yes, ma'am.
My knee's doing fine.
Good. Good.
Yes, it's doing good. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. Well, I will be in contact with you a little bit later. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for
Okay.
sharing your story. It means a lot to us. Okay.
All right. Thank
Have a
you.
good day.
Mhm.
Bye.
You too. Take care.
Yes,
Bye
ma'am.
bye.
You too.